Rwanda often conjures up images of guerrillas, volcanoes, or genocide. For me, Rwanda evokes a deep sense of love, compassion, and peace in my heart, and deep gratitude to the genocide survivors over there that I've met, who have profoundly changed my life and inspired me to adopt a more compassionate approach to business. Come join me to find out more. Wow, how did I end up here? Standing in an orphanage at the top of a mountain in Rwanda, with a sea of unfamiliar faces looking at me, watching, waiting, eager for me to start. Gosh, I feel way outside my comfort zone. Just a few weeks ago, I'd been running a successful training consultancy business, spending most of my time delivering courses in workplaces. But now I feel in a very different world. This shy little girl inside, who used to blush when anybody spoke to her, feels like she's gatecrashed someone else's party, and very unsure as to whether or not she'll pull it off. As I stand here feeling alone, all sorts of doubts are flying around my head. What am I doing here? What are they thinking? What are they expecting? What happens if what I do at home doesn't work here? Meeting these young genocide survivors for the very first time, just a few moments ago, had been easy. In fact, it had been a wonderful, uplifting experience to start the day off with African dancing and singing to the improvised drum beats of beating on a drum, or actually it was a bucket, and then a few minutes of prayer. But now these young people are waiting for me to start today's training. It was only 3 months ago that I decided to do something more meaningful with my life. For the previous few years, I had really enjoyed building up my business since leaving the investment world. But I was working really long hours, I was away from home a lot, and I just felt there was something missing. I used to see films of wars and natural disasters and those who were affected by them. And I used to feel useless because I didn't feel I could do enough to help. I'm not a medic, I'm not a builder, I'm not a disaster recovery specialist. So what could I do? Yes, of course, I'd send donations to disaster recovery agencies, but it never felt enough. I always wanted to do more. I wonder if there's ever been a pivotal moment in your life, a day or event that changed the direction of your life forever. I remember vividly the day that I decided to step back from a lot of my training consultancy and to volunteer instead. I can remember walking into a client's office and just feeling a heaviness in my heart. I no longer wanted to work for, even on a consultancy basis, businesses who mistreated their staff and didn't seem to care about communities or the planet. So I ended my contract, and instead of working that afternoon, met up with my sister to enjoy a few hours of sunshine in Edinburgh on a rare afternoon, and just mulling over the future. At that point, I had no idea that humanitarian work was going to become such a huge part of my life. All I thought I was going to do was, and I wanted to do, was to give back, a phrase I now hate but that's a story for another time. What I did know was that I wanted to work with young people. I wanted to be able to use my skills, and I wanted to feed my passion for travel. I was looking for a new sense of adventure. And as so often happens, when you stop doing something that drains your energy and get clarity on what you'd like instead, opportunities start to appear. And that's what happened for me. The very next day, I got an email in my inbox about a project that was happening in Rwanda, helping young genocide survivors. And taking that to be a sign, I immediately sent an email saying, "Love what you're doing, would like to hear more." And a few days later, the founder of the charity invited me to join her in Rwanda, which is how I found myself here, standing in front of these young genocide survivors and another couple of hundred more. So during that first trip, what we did was we did trauma healing, heart-centered leadership training, and entrepreneurial and employability skills training, all with the intention of helping these young people create better futures for themselves. So we started off with the trauma in terms of helping them overcome the negative feelings that they experience from what they'd experienced during the genocide, some of the worst horrors that we could ever imagine that we would experience as human beings. Helping them neutralize the emotions that drive so many people to terrorism today. Feelings of anger, hatred, fear, helplessness, hopelessness, anxiety, loneliness. We help these young people neutralize those and instead to feel genuine peace, joy, love, happiness. Most of them were even able to forgive what happened to them during the genocide. That first trip was only intended to be a one-off. But during that first trip, my heart burst open with love and a desire to help that was too strong. I couldn't walk away. I couldn't leave these young people who were eager to learn, survivors who were eager to create better futures for themselves, young people just like you and I once were, who had been through just some of the worst horrors that we can ever imagine, and hopefully will never experience ourselves. And so I ended up going back many times. And in those visits, I had spent time helping them set up those businesses, get jobs, grow the businesses, overcome many challenges that comes with running a business, trying to earn money, and just living in Rwanda. Fortunately, we had lots of times to celebrate too, births of children, marriages. A tragic twist was witnessing these young people helping the survivors and families of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in 2012 overcome their loss and trauma. But it wasn't until we showed them an award-winning documentary film about their journeys that I really understood the impact and potential of our work. There we were, huddled into a little hotel room in a makeshift cinema, showing them this documentary that had won awards and accolades at international film festivals. And I remember watching these genocide survivors going from being genocide survivors into beacons of light touching hearts around the world. Once ignored by the world when they needed us most, their voices were now being heard. Rwanda has changed me in so many ways. It's been one of the best decisions I've made to go over there and do the humanitarian work rather than just donating money. It has helped me reconnect to the core essence of who I really am, that authentic being that I was born to be. As a woman who hasn't had my own children and has silently grieved for the loss that that brings, I now feel a deeper sense of meaning and contentment than I've ever felt before. I started to feel that I justified the space I was inhabiting in the planet. This, it seems, is my contribution to the future of humanity. I remember thinking I was going to give back. But as those of you who do humanitarian work or voluntary work will know, some of the greatest gifts often flow in the other direction. And these young genocide survivors and everyone else I met over there, without a doubt, taught me the incredible capacity we have as human beings to survive, to heal, to love, and to forgive. The work I've done there has given me a much broader perspective on the long-term challenges of war and poverty. I have a deeper sense of appreciation for the opportunities and freedom that I have simply because I was born into Europe during this peacetime. I am full of wonder and gratitude to these young people and everyone I met there for inspiring me and helping me become a much better global citizen. And all that would have been great, but that's not all. You see, when I came back from that very first trip, I needed to start raising funds to go back and to continue to support the charity. But how do you do that when you're running a full-time business? To me, the answer was obvious. I didn't want to eat into my personal time. I was already struggling to maintain a healthy work-life balance. And so what I started to do was to make these miracle bead bracelets in the hope that some people might buy them. And they did. I took them along to business networking events and, much to my surprise, found I could raise several £100s from each event. The more events I went to, the more money I was raising for the work we were doing in Rwanda. Pretty quickly, I became known around town as the woman raising money for genocide survivors in Rwanda. My brand had become more memorable, and people wanted to help. I had friends who started organizing fundraising parties in their homes, inviting me along to teach stress management techniques and to sell my bracelets. People learnt the techniques, they bought my bracelets, and a few people would sign up with me as a client on the back of that. I started being asked to speak at conferences and networks and invited to take my bracelets along, which I did, raising more money for the cause and picking up a few more clients. And that's when I began to realize that what I was doing was attracting more opportunities through the fundraising work and the humanitarian work I was doing. That was when I started to realize that business is a great opportunity to be kind. So my business giving over the years has evolved. I do all sorts of different things now, as well as the fundraising, also putting charitable giving at the heart of my business, I guess, in many different ways. Sourcing social suppliers is something that I've started to do, and teaching other people how to do this. And as I did more and more of this, people started to say, well, what is it you're doing? And how do you do it? How do you grow a business? By fundraising. How do you grow a business by being kind? And what do you mean by all of that? And that's when the concept of what I call give to profit came about. But what's give to profit? Well, give to profit is a business model for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to grow successful businesses that both make money and do good in the world at the same time. So really for those who want to adopt a compassionate approach, because they believe in more, that business is about more than simply making money. You see, what happens is, traditionally people are taught that if you want to set up in business, you set up in business. And if you want to do good in the world, you set up a charity or a social enterprise. Never the two shall meet. However, why not? Why is it that we keep them separate? And so what happens is so many socially conscious business owners are setting up in business over here and leaving their giving separate. They keep it separate instead of bringing it together. And the challenge is that if you are somebody that is motivated to make a difference, leaving your heart at the door of your business doesn't work because you don't feel satisfied. It's an inner conflict. In the same way that if we make too many compromises in who we are in relationships or our work, it's not sustainable. And so what Give to Profit does is simply bring the two together, integrating charitable giving into business so we can have greater impact. And so that we can run authentic businesses that go out and do good in the world. This, to me, is a very simple thing. To me, it's what felt was natural. And what people quite often say is, my God, that's so obvious. And that's what I feel it is. But we can bring it together. And it's about more than simply making philanthropic donations. It's about partnering with charities, social enterprises, causes, NGOs, so that together we can all do good instead of operating in silos. And coming from a place of love, kindness, and compassion, so we can actually all make the world a better place. There's a spectrum of business giving. At one side, you might have businesses that just want to do one or two things, like raise funds for causes or sourcing social suppliers. The other end of the spectrum, you have some businesses who might want to define a social impact mission statement and work out the strategies, the charitable giving strategies or the social impact strategies that enable them to have the impact that they want to have in the world. There's no right and wrong. The beauty is, as a business owner, you can decide. And the thing is that doing good in business is good for business. That's a little bonus. You see, we live in a world where consumers and investors and employees are challenging businesses to do things different, to demonstrate they care, to stop putting profits first at the expense of people, communities, and the planet. But don't take my word for it. Imagine you're really thirsty for a lovely cup of tea or coffee or whatever your tipple is. And you have the choice of going to a cafe that mistreats its staff, is rude to its customers, and is doing everything it can to ruin and destroy the planet. Or you can go to another one which sells exactly the same drinks, but the experience is very different. They treat their staff well. They do lots in the community. They care about their people. And they might even make a donation to a charity too. Hands up if you'd go to the second one. Keep your hands up if you might even pay just a little bit more for that drink. Yeah, thank you. What you have shown me is consistent with all the research, and there's lots of it, that shows we want something different from business. And there's a part that we can all play in that. The young people inspired me to do business different. They taught me that business is an opportunity to be kind. But there's something we can all do. Imagine if every single business was a force for good. How different would the world be? So my invitation to you today is to consider what you could do. As individuals, who do you buy from? Who do you work for? Who do you invest in? Are they destroying the world or making it a better place? If you're involved in charities, social enterprises, clubs, communities, what could you do to get businesses, and particularly small to medium-sized businesses, to help you? How could you make it easier for them to support you? And for any business owners and entrepreneurs and leaders in the audience, what could you do to incorporate social impact strategies into your business and inspire others to do the same? Whatever you do, remember, business is a great opportunity to be kind, and what you do next matters. Thank you.